It started when I moved into the old house on Wren Hollow Road. The kind of place you rent because it's cheap and isolated and you're desperate to start over. Not because it feels like home. Not because you actually believe the landlord when he says it's just got a bit of character. The house was old. Like, really old. The kind with warped wooden floors that creak even when you're standing still, and light switches that spark a little when you flick them. But I didn't care. I needed a reset. After what happened with my brother, and the fire, and the hospital stays, and the questions nobody could answer, I just wanted somewhere quiet. Somewhere the past couldn't follow me. I didn't even notice the basement door until my third day there. It was hidden behind a leaning bookshelf that I pushed aside when trying to clean up. The door had 3 deadbolts on it, not normal locks either, like the kind you'd see on a shipping container or a vault. They were old and rusted, but still sealed tight. No key in sight. I asked the landlord about it, but he just shrugged and said something like, "That's not to worry about what people used to keep locked up down there." I laughed, awkwardly, but he didn't. He just looked at me for a long time and then muttered, "If you hear scratching, don't answer it." That night, I didn't sleep well. Not because of any sounds, but because of a dream. Or maybe it wasn't a dream. I was in the basement, but not the one in the house. It was darker, endless, with walls made of writhing hands and mouths that whispered things I couldn't understand. I was walking toward a sound, a voice calling my name in the same tone my brother used to use when he was scared. When I woke up, the basement door was open. The bolts were still on, still locked in place, but the door was open behind them. Just a crack, just enough to see the first step leading downward into pure blackness. I didn't go near it. I should have left then, packed my bags and ran, but I didn't. I stayed. Curiosity, stupidity, call it whatever you want. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Every night I'd hear something faint, scratching, like the landlord said. But it wasn't like an animal. It was deliberate. It had rhythm, like someone was dragging a single fingernail across the inside of the door, back and forth, back and forth. I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was just old wood settling, or rats, or my mind playing tricks. Until the night it said my name. It wasn't loud, it wasn't threatening. It sounded almost gentle. Eli. That's me. Nobody knew I lived there yet. I hadn't told anyone. No mail had come. No one had visited, and yet the voice knew my name. I stayed frozen in bed, every hair on my body standing on end, heart pounding in my throat. Eli, come down. I didn't. I stayed there all night with my eyes squeezed shut until the sun came up and the voice disappeared. That morning I checked the basement door again. It was closed. The bolts were still rusted shut. But now, something new. Letters carved into the wood. I remember. That was what my brother used to say in the hospital when he came back from one of his episodes. I remember what's under the house. Nobody knew what he meant. There was no basement in our childhood home. At least, we didn't think so. I started losing time. I'd blink and hours would be gone. I'd find myself standing in front of the basement door without remembering walking there. Once I woke up on the floor, nails in my hand, wood splinters under my fingernails, like I'd been trying to pry the door open. The dreams got worse too. I'd hear whispering in languages that made my ears ache. I'd see shadows with too many limbs crawling up the walls. And always, that voice. "Come down, Eli. Come down and see." I finally broke one of the locks. I don't know why. I don't remember doing it. I just woke up and it was hanging loose, clattering on the floor. I told myself I'd call someone. Locksmith, priest, therapist, anyone. But I didn't. I just watched the door every night, waiting, listening. The second lock broke a week later. Same way. I never touched it. It just fell. That's when the smell started, like mold and copper and something sweet underneath it, something like rot. I kept all the windows open, but it wouldn't go away. It clung to me. People at the store started giving me looks. One cashier straight up told me I smelled like a grave. I stopped going out after that. I didn't want to bring it with me. The dreams became memories. I could feel it. Something ancient, buried, watching me through the cracks in the walls. It knew I was close. It was waiting. My brother's voice came back. Not just in dreams. In the house. I'd hear him crying in the bathroom, screaming from the closet, laughing from the vents. I've never told anyone this story. Not even my therapist, not even my wife, and not even the police. When they came knocking and asked if I knew anything about what happened to my neighbor, I said no, of course. But I think they could see it in my face, in my shaking hands, in the way I kept looking past them like something was behind them. Something coming, always coming. And they eventually left. Probably figured I was just some weirdo who couldn't handle the stress of the investigation, The truth is I wasn't stressed from that. I was stressed because of what I saw, what I did, and what I might have brought into this world. It started one night, around 2:43 a.m., according to the blinking red digital clock next to my bed that I'd been staring at for at least 20 minutes, wide awake and restless for no good reason, or so I thought. That was until I heard it, a soft knocking sound, not like a knock on a door, more like tapping, gentle and rhythmic, like someone trying to get your attention without waking the whole house. It was coming from the wall beside my bed, the wall I share with my neighbor Derek, a quiet guy in his 30s who lived alone, kept to himself, didn't even own a pet, as far as I knew. I sat up in bed, thinking maybe it was the pipes or the wind or some other boring explanation that wouldn't make me question my sanity, but then it happened again, and again, each knock spaced exactly 7 seconds apart, like a metronome, like someone was counting. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I pressed my ear to the wall, thinking maybe Derek had fallen or needed help or something, but what I heard wasn't a cry for help, or a moan of pain. It was whispering. Soft, indecipherable whispering, like someone was reciting something in a language I didn't recognize. That was the first night I didn't sleep, and it only got worse from there. Every night, around 2:43 a.m., the knocking would start. Same rhythm, same whispering, and then other things began to happen, things I still can't explain. My lights would flicker, bulbs would burst. I'd wake up with scratches on my back or bruises on my thighs, and once I found dirt in my bed, like someone had come in from the outside, like something had climbed in with me. I asked Derek about it once, when I caught him getting his mail, and he just looked at me, pale and sunken-eyed like he hadn't slept in weeks, and muttered, "You hear it too?" That was it. That was all he said before he walked back into his unit and slammed the door shut. I didn't see him again for a while, and part of me hoped he'd just moved out, left all this madness behind. But no, he was still in there. I could hear him. I could hear the screams. They weren't constant, just every few nights. Always around the same time. Sometimes it was shouting, sometimes crying, and once, I swear I heard laughter, but not his. It was high-pitched, gleeful, and wrong. So wrong, like a child who'd never been taught empathy. I called the police once, reported disturbance, but by the time they arrived, everything was quiet. Too quiet. And they left with a shrug, telling me to keep a log in case it happened again. I didn't bother. I knew they wouldn't believe me. Hell, I barely believed it myself. Then came the night it escalated. I woke up not to knocking, but to silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. The kind that makes your ears ring and your stomach twist. I couldn't move at first. Sleep paralysis, I figured. Until I realized I wasn't in my bed. I was standing in front of the wall. My hands were bleeding. My fingernails were cracked and ruined. The drywall was shredded like I'd been clawing at it for hours. I screamed, fell back, and called 911, telling them something was wrong with me, with my neighbor, with this whole building. They sent an ambulance. I spent 3 days in a psych ward for observation, and when I came back, Derek was gone. His door was wide open, the inside of his unit trashed, furniture overturned, symbols scrawled in what looked like blood on the walls, and the smell. God, the smell. Like rot, like wet leaves and meat left in the sun. They never found him. Not a single trace. Just a single notebook on his kitchen table, filled with nonsense symbols and ramblings about the thin place, and scratching between the veil and the one who watches. I took a photo of one page before the cops took it away. I don't know why. Curiosity, I guess. Or maybe something deeper. Something I couldn't understand. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I pulled up the photo and stared at the symbol, a spiral made of tiny, interconnected figures, each one with too many limbs and a single, empty eye. I must have fallen asleep at some point because the next thing I knew, I was dreaming, or at. The first time Sarah noticed him, she thought it was just a coincidence. She'd been at her usual cafe, curled up with a book by the window. The man stood outside, halfway down the street, pretending to check his phone. His gaze flicked toward her every few seconds. She told herself she was being paranoid. It was a public space, after all. Still, the way his dark hoodie obscured most of his face unsettled her. A week later, she saw him again. This time she was leaving her gym, earbuds in, sweaty and exhausted. The man was across the road, leaning against a lamppost. Again, he pretended to look at his phone, but his eyes lingered on her just a little too long. Sarah walked home faster than usual, locking her door as soon as she stepped inside. Over the next few weeks, she began noticing him more often. At the supermarket, browsing the aisles just 2 shelves away. On her evening jogs, always trailing far enough behind that it could have been a coincidence. One morning, she glimpsed him outside her apartment building. That was the day Sarah knew this wasn't her imagination. She reported him to the police, but they shrugged it off. Could just be someone from the neighborhood, the officer said, almost dismissively. Keep your doors locked. Call us if anything happens. Weeks passed, and Sarah felt trapped in her own life. She stopped jogging. She skipped her usual routines. At night, she slept with her bedroom door locked and a chair wedged beneath the handle. Still, that constant unease never left her. Then came the night of the storm. Rain lashed against her windows, wind howling like a feral animal. Sarah sat curled on her couch, wrapped in a blanket, half watching some sitcom. A sudden flicker, then darkness. The power was out. Her apartment fell silent, except for the muffled patter of rain. Sarah reached for her phone to turn on the flashlight, but as her hand closed around it, her breath caught. On the screen was a notification. Front door. Motion detected. Her smart doorbell had a camera. She tapped the alert, heart pounding. The grainy image showed a shadowed figure standing directly outside her door, hood low over his face, shoulders hunched. It was him. Sarah backed away from the door, clamping a hand over her mouth to suppress a sob. Her mind raced. What now? Call the police? He could break in before they arrived. Tap, tap, tap. The sound of knuckles rapping on the glass pane of her living room window. Sarah spun around, his silhouette pressed against the glass, distorted by rain. The curve of his smile cut through the blur. Go away, she whispered, more to herself than to him. Her phone buzzed again. Back door. Motion detected. Sarah bolted for her bedroom, slamming the door behind her and shoving the chair under the knob. Heart hammering, she called 000. The dispatcher answered, but Sarah barely heard her own voice through the panic. He's here. He's trying to get in. Please hurry. The dispatcher's voice was calm, steady. Stay on the line with me, she said. Are all your doors locked? Yes, Sarah sobbed. But he's at the window now. Thump, thump, thump. The sound of something heavy slamming against her back door. Wood creaked. Splinters popped. He's coming in, Sarah whispered. Police are on their way, the dispatcher said. Stay quiet. Stay hidden. Sarah knelt beside her bed, trembling. She heard the back door finally give way. Footsteps moved through her apartment, slow, deliberate, closer, closer still, then silence. The bedroom door handle jiggled. The chair under the knob shifted. The man chuckled, low, guttural. I know you're in there, he sang, almost playfully. The wood began to splinter. Sarah's eyes locked on her window. 4th floor, no fire escape, no balcony. Her only option was the street below. Crack. The bedroom door burst open. The man stepped inside, hood down now. His face, gaunt, twisted in a smile that didn't belong in a human being. His eyes gleamed as he stepped closer. Sarah scrambled to the window, yanking it open just as he lunged. His fingers scraped her ankle. She kicked, twisting free, and hurled herself out. The fall felt endless. She hit the awning of the cafe below, bouncing painfully before tumbling onto the wet pavement. Dazed and gasping for air, she heard sirens. Red and blue lights painted the night. The man stood at her shattered window above, watching her with that same awful smile. Then he turned and vanished back into the darkness. The police searched her apartment, but he was gone. No fingerprints. No sign of forced entry at the front door, just the splintered remains of her back door. The officers couldn't explain how he'd bypassed her locks, or why the security camera hadn't caught his face clearly. Could be a faulty system, they said, or someone who knows how to work around it. For weeks, Sarah couldn't sleep. She moved to a new apartment across town, installed extra locks, and kept a baseball bat beside her bed. For a while, it felt like she'd escaped. Then, late one evening, she arrived home to find a single envelope on her doorstep. No postage, no name. Inside was a photo, grainy and dark, a picture of her sleeping in her new bedroom. On the back, scrawled in jagged handwriting, were 3 words: I found you. The wind howled through the empty streets as Erin hurried home from her late shift at the diner. The rain had started as a drizzle but now poured down in sheets, soaking through her thin jacket. She kept her head low, shoes splashing through puddles. The streets were eerily quiet, not unusual for this part of town. But tonight, something felt different. She couldn't shake the feeling that someone was following her. She turned her head sharply. Nothing but the flickering glow of a streetlight. Just her imagination, she told herself, and kept walking. The sound of footsteps splashing behind her snapped her back to reality. Erin froze. The footsteps stopped too. She turned again. Still nothing. She laughed nervously at herself, muttering, "Get a grip." As she reached her apartment door, keys jingling in her hands, a faint shadow crossed the corner of her vision. She spun quickly, but again, no one was there. That night, she double-locked her door and wedged a chair beneath the handle. Sleep came reluctantly, but when it did, it was uneasy. The following morning, Erin noticed something odd. The cup of coffee she'd left on her kitchen counter was gone. She swore she'd left it there before heading to bed. Stranger still, her window, which she always locked, was slightly ajar. Her stomach nodded. Maybe she'd forgotten to lock it properly, she reasoned. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been in her apartment. Over the next week, the feeling intensified. Erin started finding things slightly out of place. Her shoes moved. Her purse left on the table instead of by the door. Her toothbrush wet before she'd even touched it. She tried to explain it away, convincing herself she was just overworked. But each night, she lay awake, heart racing at every creak of the floorboards or whisper of wind against her window. One evening, while scrolling through her phone, Erin noticed a new app had appeared, one she didn't remember downloading. It was called Watcher. Curious, but wary, she tapped it. The screen flashed before displaying a list of timestamps, each with her address noted beside it. At the top was the most recent entry, from that very night, marked 004. The sickening realization hit her. Someone had been tracking her. Tonight, heart hammering in her chest, she called 000, her fingers shaking. The dispatcher told her police would arrive soon. Erin paced her apartment, jumping at every noise. Minutes felt like hours. Then came a knock at the door. She approached slowly. "Who is it?" she asked. "Police," a voice called back. Relieved, she opened the door, but instead of a uniformed officer, a man stood there soaked from the rain. He grinned. "You called for help?" Erin tried to slam the door, but his hand shot out, forcing it open. She screamed, twisting away as he shoved inside. Erin bolted for her bedroom, slamming the door behind her. The man's footsteps thudded against the wooden floor. She grabbed her phone, dialed 000 again. "Please hurry," she cried. "He's inside." "Stay calm," the operator said. "Officers are minutes away." The bedroom door rattled. The man's voice came from the other side, low and menacing. "You can't hide forever." Erin wedged her dresser against the door, her breath ragged. Then she remembered her window. She pushed it open and clambered out onto the fire escape. Rain slicked the metal, and her bare feet slipped as she hurried down. The man's face appeared in the window behind her, his twisted smile still plastered on his face. "I'll find you," he growled. Erin reached the alley below and sprinted through the rain. The flashing lights of a patrol car appeared at the corner, and 2 officers rushed to meet her. Gasping, she told them everything. They stormed her apartment, but the man was gone. The officers found clear signs of forced entry, and the Watcher app had vanished from her phone. They promised to increase patrols near her building, but Erin never returned to that apartment. She moved across town and changed her number. For a few weeks, she finally felt safe. Then, one evening, she found a single envelope waiting on her doorstep. Inside was a grainy photograph, a picture of her standing on her new balcony. On the back, in red ink, were 3 chilling words: "I never left." The old house at the end of Blackthorn Lane had always been a source of unease in the neighborhood. No one had lived there for years, yet somehow the house never seemed truly abandoned. The curtains shifted sometimes when no wind was present, and faint footsteps could be heard if you walked too close at night. Most residents gave the house a wide berth, all except Daniel Whitaker. Daniel was a curious man, too curious, his friends often warned him. When a series of local break-ins occurred, Daniel became obsessed with watching his street. He purchased a high-end security camera system and spent his evenings scanning the footage, convinced the mysterious house was connected to the thefts. Days turned to weeks, and Daniel's paranoia deepened. Then one night, something unusual appeared on his footage. It was nearly 2 a.m. when Daniel caught sight of a figure, pale, thin, and impossibly tall, standing outside the Blackthorn house. The figure didn't move, didn't knock, didn't seem to breathe. It just stood there, watching. Daniel stared at the screen for what felt like an eternity before the figure finally turned, not walking, but gliding, back into the shadows. That was enough to convince Daniel to investigate. The next evening, armed with a flashlight and his phone, Daniel walked to the house. The air seemed colder near the property, and the air smelled faintly of rot. The gate creaked as he pushed it open. The front door was locked, but Daniel circled to the side and found a shattered basement window. Against his better judgment, he climbed through. The air inside was stale and heavy. Dust clung to every surface, and faded wallpaper peeled from the walls. Furniture, draped in white sheets, filled the room like shrouded figures. Daniel moved deeper into the house. In the kitchen, he noticed fresh footprints in the dust. They led upstairs. Heart pounding, Daniel followed. At the top of the staircase, he found a narrow hallway lined with doors. One stood slightly ajar. From inside, a faint whisper rose, distant and incoherent. Daniel moved closer, barely breathing. The whisper sharpened. Now distinct words. "I know you're here." The voice was low, almost playful. Daniel froze. The whisper had come from behind him, not from the room ahead. He spun around, and there stood the figure from the camera. It was tall, skeletal, with skin stretched tight over its bones, its empty eyes locked on his. Daniel bolted. He tore down the stairs, slipping and scraping his arm on the banister. The figure moved faster than seemed possible, appearing at the base of the staircase just as Daniel reached the ground floor. He sprinted to the basement window, diving through the jagged glass and landing hard on the cold earth outside. Gasping for breath, Daniel ran all the way home. He barely slept that night. The following day, he reviewed his security footage. To his horror, the camera had recorded the figure outside his own home, hours after he'd escaped. Worse still, it appeared closer in each frame, inching nearer until it stood right outside his window. Then, moments before sunrise, the figure vanished. Daniel sealed his windows, added extra locks to his doors, and kept his phone beside him at all times. But none of it mattered. That night, something scraped against his bedroom window. He peeked through the blinds, and there it was, standing in the yard, staring directly at him. The figure raised one emaciated hand and pointed. Daniel scrambled for his phone and dialed 000. "It's here. It's outside my house." The dispatcher promised to send someone immediately. But when officers arrived, there was no trace of the figure, just long, narrow footprints that led from the Blackthorn house to his front door. Over the next week, Daniel's life unraveled. The figure followed him everywhere, standing outside his workplace, lingering near his car, even appearing in the reflection of his television late at night. The police offered no answers, dismissing his claims as stress-induced paranoia. Desperate, Daniel visited the town's archives, determined to uncover the history of the Blackthorn house. What he found made his blood run cold. Decades ago, the house had belonged to a man named Elias Moore, a reclusive artist, infamous for painting twisted, grotesque figures. Rumors swirled that Moore believed his art could summon spirits, and that one night, he had succeeded. Neighbors reported seeing strange shadows moving in his windows, and weeks later, Moore vanished without a trace. Some claimed he'd been taken by whatever he had conjured. Daniel returned home, feeling a deep sense of dread. That night, he refused to sleep. Hours crept by, his eyes fixed on his bedroom door. At 3:07 a.m., the handle began to turn. The lock clicked. Daniel stumbled back as the door slowly swung open. The figure stood in the doorway, its empty gaze locked onto him. "You shouldn't have come," it whispered. Daniel fled, crashing through his apartment door and sprinting into the street. Behind him, the figure followed, silent, relentless. Daniel never stopped running that night. By morning, he was found half-conscious in a gas station parking lot, babbling about something that couldn't be seen. No one believed him. Weeks later, Daniel vanished. His apartment sat empty, yet his neighbors swore they sometimes heard footsteps pacing inside at night. And at the end of Blackthorn Lane, the figure still waits, watching, waiting for someone else curious enough to step inside. I never thought I was the kind of person to lose my mind, but I'm starting to doubt that now. It started small, like most things do. A misplaced object here, a forgotten conversation there. I figured I was just stressed from work, maybe burnt out. I work in IT, long hours alone staring at screens, barely interacting with anyone except through Slack messages and emails. Easy to feel isolated, but I've always been comfortable in my own head. At least I was. A few weeks ago, I woke up to my phone buzzing at 3:07 a.m. The screen showed a missed call from my own number. I figured it was some scam, but it left a voicemail. When I played it back, there was just heavy breathing, and then this distorted voice that I couldn't understand, like someone was trying to talk underwater. I deleted it and tried to forget about it, but things got weirder. Little stuff at first. My toothbrush would be wet before I used it. My laptop would show browser histories I didn't remember searching, and sometimes I'd hear faint murmuring from my bathroom when I was in bed. I told myself it was just paranoia, but then one night, I came home to find my front door slightly ajar. Nothing was missing. Nothing was out of place. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been inside. The next day I changed my locks, even put a chair under the doorknob before bed just to feel safe. That night, I woke up again. 3:07 a.m. Phone buzzing. This time it was a text from my number. Just one word. Downstairs. I froze, heart hammering in my chest. I knew I should call the cops, but I was too scared to even reach for my phone. Then I heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Like someone knew I was awake and wanted me to hear them. I grabbed the heaviest thing I could find, a metal lamp, and crept to my bedroom door. I could hear the footsteps pacing in the living room, pausing at the base of the stairs. I stood there for what felt like hours, sweating, barely breathing. When I finally opened the door, everything was silent. No footsteps, no sign of anyone. I convinced myself I was just cracking under stress, that none of this was real. But the next morning, I found muddy footprints on the carpet, bare footprints, starting at my front door and leading halfway up the stairs before vanishing. I started staying with friends after that, just crashing on their couches. It helped for a few nights, but then they started getting calls too, always at 3:07 a.m., always from their own numbers. Some just heard static, others heard whispers. One friend swore she heard my voice begging for help. I don't remember doing that. I don't remember any of this. I've started blacking out, waking up in strange places with no memory of how I got there. Twice now, I've woken up at my own apartment, even though I know I locked the door and left the key with my friend. One morning I woke up in my bed, and there was a message scrawled on my wall in what looked like ash or soot. Let me out. I've started recording myself when I sleep. Last night, I watched the footage, and at 3:07 a.m. I sat bolt upright, staring straight into the camera. I spoke for 6 full minutes in a voice that wasn't mine, raspy, deep, guttural. I couldn't understand the words, but there was one part I kept repeating over and over. Let me out. Let me out. Let me out. I don't remember doing any of that. I don't know what I'm letting out. I've stopped sleeping altogether, but I still find myself waking up in strange places. My phone always buzzing with new messages. My voice always on the recordings, begging for something I don't understand. I'm scared that one day I won't wake up at all. Or worse, that I'll wake up, and whatever I've let out will be staring back at me in the mirror. It started with a simple knock on the door, one I barely registered until it grew louder. I lived alone in a quiet suburb, so visitors were rare. When I peered through the peephole, no one was there. I opened the door slightly, thinking maybe a package had been left, but nothing. Shrugging it off, I turned back inside, only to freeze at the sound of footsteps racing down the hall behind me. I spun around, but no one was there. My heart pounded. I locked the door and checked the entire apartment, but I was alone, or so I thought. Later that night, I woke to whispering coming from the vent above my bed. It sounded like someone mumbling a prayer, words too distorted to understand. I tried to convince myself it was my imagination, until I heard my own name spoken, clear as day. I moved out that weekend. My new place was better, or so I believed. The third night there, I woke to my phone buzzing with an unknown number calling. I declined it, but seconds later my voicemail chimed. Curious, I listened and nearly dropped the phone. The message was my voice whispering, "Let me in." I tried to forget about it, but things only got worse. One evening, while doing dishes, I noticed a man standing at the end of my driveway. He wore a tattered gray hoodie, face obscured by the shadow of his hood. I stared for several minutes before turning away to grab my phone. When I looked back, he was gone, but muddy footprints trailed from the sidewalk to my window. The next morning, I found a note taped to my door that read, "I like your bedroom light." I hadn't turned my bedroom light on the night before. After that, I stopped sleeping by the window and kept my curtains shut tight. But one night, I forgot. I woke up to my phone buzzing again. Only this time, the unknown number was accompanied by a photo, a picture of me sleeping, taken from outside my window. I moved again after that, and things seemed to calm down. That was until my cousin called in a panic a few weeks later. She lived about 30 minutes away and told me her daughter, Lily, had an imaginary friend named Daniel. Kids have imaginary friends all the time, but what scared her was that Lily claimed Daniel lived in the walls. One night, I stayed over to keep my cousin company. While she was asleep, I went to the kitchen for some water. As I walked back down the hallway, I heard Lily's voice coming from her room, giggling and talking quietly. I peeked inside. She was facing the wall, whispering as if someone was right in front of her. "Lily," I called softly. She turned slowly and grinned at me before saying, "Daniel says you should leave." I did not sleep a second that night. 2 weeks later, their house caught fire. No one knows what caused it, but the firefighters found strange claw marks on the inside of the walls. I tried to forget about everything, just focus on work and move on. But things have a way of finding you. I took up jogging to clear my mind and found a trail in a forest near my new place. One evening, as I ran deeper than usual, I noticed an old wooden staircase in the trees. It led to nowhere, just steps that rose into the sky and stopped. Something about it unsettled me, but curiosity got the better of me. I climbed the stairs slowly, feeling a cold breeze rise as I ascended. At the top, I found a small wooden platform, and on it was a Polaroid photograph. The picture showed the view from where I stood, but there was a figure in the trees. Someone was watching me. I practically flew down the steps and sprinted back to my car. When I checked the photo again later that night, there was no figure, just the empty woods. But somehow, I knew someone had been there. The final encounter happened when I met Clara. She was sweet, funny, and we connected quickly. One night, she invited me to her parents' house for dinner in a remote part of town. The house was old but charming, except for the basement door, which had 3 locks on it. Clara noticed me staring and explained her parents always kept it locked because something felt wrong down there. We laughed it off, but later that night, I woke up to footsteps creaking in the floor above me. I figured Clara's parents were awake until I remembered they weren't home that night. The steps creaked toward Clara's room, stopping right outside the door. I held my breath, waiting, and suddenly the footsteps retreated. I rushed to check the locks on this basement door. They were all unlatched. The next morning, Clara found muddy footprints leading from the basement to her bedroom door. We never spoke about it again. The events described in this chilling Reddit story have sparked several possible theories from the community. While no single explanation ties everything together perfectly, these theories reflect what users might propose based on similar experiences shared online. Here are some theories Redditors likely explore. 1. Paranormal entity attachment theory, most popular on r NoSleep. This theory suggests that a malevolent entity, possibly demonic or spirit-like, latched onto the narrator and followed them across different locations. The common theme of claw marks, whispering, and watching from the shadows fits classic haunting patterns. Redditors may point out that the entity seems intelligent, targeting the narrator's loved ones, like Lily and Clara, and deliberately escalating fear. Daniel in the Walls could be this entity manipulating Lily to gain influence or presence in her home. Children are often considered more sensitive to supernatural forces, which aligns with folklore. The claw marks inside the walls might indicate the entity physically manifested, possibly living within the structure itself. The staircase in the woods and the figure in the photograph could suggest a cursed or haunted location, possibly tied to a local legend or forgotten ritual. The basement door unlocking by itself indicates the entity may be physically capable of interacting with objects, a sign of a powerful presence. Reddit user comments for this theory. Daniel sounds like a classic demonic attachment. It didn't just follow you. It latched on and started targeting your friends and family. The claw marks inside the walls, that thing was trying to get out, whatever it was. It's still following you. 2. The inhuman theory. Skinwalker, Wendigo, forest spirit. Some Redditors may tie this to folklore involving skinwalkers, wendigos, or forest spirits. The staircase in the woods has become a popular urban legend on Reddit, with theories claiming these staircases are linked to other realms or cursed beings that use them as a trap. The figure in the photo could be a creature watching and following the narrator. In this theory, Daniel isn't a spirit. It's a shapeshifter, or inhuman presence disguising itself as something familiar to Lily. The staircase may have acted as a beacon or ritual site, where the narrator unintentionally connected with this entity. The basement door unlocking could mean this entity has found new ground to stalk and influence. Reddit user comments for this theory. Those stairs in the woods are bad news. There's a whole thread about search and rescue workers seeing them. People vanish after climbing them. Daniel sounds less like a spirit and more like something pretending to be one to get closer to you. Third stalker, intruder theory. Grounded in reality. A chilling yet realistic theory suggests that all these experiences may be linked to a disturbed individual, a stalker who's been tracking the narrator for months. This theory focuses on the muddy footprints, the figure in the photo, and the basement locks being undone as signs of a person sneaking in and out. In this theory, Daniel may have been a twisted individual living inside Lily's walls, a horrifying reality that sadly mirrors real-life cases of intruders secretly living in crawl spaces or attics. The claw marks could be scratch patterns from the stalker carving their way through drywall or insulation. The basement locks being undone could suggest this person was gaining access to Clara's home by sneaking in through the basement. Reddit user comments for this theory. You need to check your attic, vents, and walls. This could be someone hiding and watching you. That Polaroid wasn't supernatural. That's someone following you and messing with your head. 4. Psychological, delusional theory, mental health explanation. Some Redditors may suggest the narrator is suffering from a mental health condition, such as paranoia, psychosis, or extreme anxiety. In this
theory, the narrator's stress could be distorting their perception of reality. The figure in the Polaroid, whispers and voices mimicking them, may be hallucinations triggered by trauma or isolation. The footsteps and unlocked basement could have been anxiety-induced assumptions rather than actual events. The claw marks might have pre-existed and only became noticeable after the fire, which could have been electrical or accidental. Reddit user comments for this theory: sounds like you've been under a lot of stress. Are you sure these things aren't playing tricks on your mind? Hallucinations can mimic reality terrifyingly well. You should talk to someone about this.
Final verdict. Most likely. Theory Reddit would likely combine theories into one chilling explanation. The narrator encountered a malevolent entity while climbing the mysterious staircase. The spirit latched onto them and began feeding them their fear. The entity manipulated Lily, mimicked voices, and possibly used a physical form to stalk and torment them. The stalker theory may also play a role, with a real person exploiting the situation to increase paranoia. The burned house, basement door unlocking, and claw marks all suggest something deeply sinister, part supernatural, part psychological, and entirely horrifying. Top upvoted comment theory. Dude, you've got a mix of problems here. Sounds like you pissed off something paranormal when you climbed those stairs, and now it's just waiting. Combine that with someone clearly tracking you, and you're in deep trouble. Burn that photo, sage your house, and get cameras. Whatever's following you isn't done yet. When my grandmother passed away last year, I inherited her old house, a creaky Victorian home that had been in our family for generations. The place always unsettled me as a kid. It was too quiet, too cold, and no matter how brightly the sun shone outside, the hallways always seemed dim. My mom told me the house had a forgotten room, a door in the attic that no one ever opened. Grandma never explained why. I wasn't superstitious, but I always felt uneasy upstairs. After moving in, I found excuses to avoid the attic entirely. The house itself had plenty to keep me occupied. Endless boxes of dusty books, creaking floorboards, and an ancient boiler that seemed determined to stop working. One night, after weeks of ignoring the attic, I finally worked up the courage to check it out. Curiosity, right? I climbed the narrow steps and found the forgotten room immediately, a door at the end of the hallway, warped with age and painted shut. The paint was cracked like dry skin, and there were scratch marks on the wood, as if someone had clawed at it from the inside. I laughed it off. Old houses have quirks. I went back downstairs, but that night I couldn't sleep. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of footsteps directly above me, slow, deliberate pacing. I tried to rationalize it. Old pipes, expanding wood, animals in the attic. But no matter what excuse I created, I couldn't ignore the clear rhythm of footsteps, pacing back and forth. The next day, I decided to pry open the door. Maybe seeing inside would put my mind at ease. It took some effort, but eventually, the brittle paint cracked and the door creaked open. The room inside was wrong. The walls were scorched black, like there had been a fire, but only in that one room. The floor was covered in ash, and the air felt dense and cold. In the corner, a small wooden chair faced the wall. Above it, childlike drawings were carved directly into the plaster. Crude stick figures with hollow circles for eyes. Hundreds of them,
all facing the same direction, toward the corner, toward the chair. I felt my stomach turn. I closed the door fast and tried to forget about it. That night, I woke up gasping for air. My bedroom felt stiflingly cold, and the shadows in the corners seemed thicker than usual. Then I heard the creak of the attic door swinging open, a long, groaning sound that stretched through the house. The footsteps followed, slow, heavy, coming down the attic stairs. I froze. The steps reached the landing, then turned toward my room. I bolted upright and reached for my phone, but my fingers were shaking too hard to dial. Footsteps stopped just outside my door. I stared at the crack under the door frame and saw two shadowed feet, bare, pale, unmoving. Then I heard it, a faint voice, dry and raspy, whispering from the other side. Come back to the room. Sit in the chair. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I just stared, waiting. After what felt like hours, the shadowed feet finally turned and shuffled away. The attic door groaned shut. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I packed a bag and left. I haven't gone back, but sometimes, in the dead of night, I wake up cold, and I swear I can still hear footsteps pacing back and forth just above me.
The chilling events in this story leave plenty of room for interpretation, and Redditors would have no shortage of theories about what might have happened. Here are some of the most compelling explanations people might propose. 1. Paranormal entity, spirit attachment theory. Most popular theory. This theory suggests that the Forgotten Room housed a malevolent spirit, possibly tied to the scorched walls and childlike drawings. The claw marks on the door indicate that whatever this presence was, spirit, demon, or otherwise, may have once been trapped inside. The chair facing the wall and the figures with hollow eyes hint at a disturbing ritual or attempt to contain the entity. The whispered invitation, come back to the room, sit in the chair, could be a method of luring the narrator back to establish control or possession. Key signs. Supporting this theory, the scorched walls could indicate a past cleansing ritual, such as burning sage, or even an unsuccessful attempt to destroy the entity. The stick figure drawings resemble common paranormal lore, where symbols are used to trap spirits or mark their presence. The shadowed feet and the pacing suggest a restless spirit, seeking attention or a new victim. Reddit comment. Likely to appear. Whatever's in that room was meant to stay locked in there. You made a huge mistake opening that door. It's free now. 2. Residual energy theory. Haunted imprint. In this theory, the strange events aren't caused by an active spirit, but rather by residual energy, an imprint of past trauma replaying itself. The scorched room may have been the site of a past tragedy, such as a fire that claimed someone's life. The pacing footsteps, shadowed figure, and whispers could be echoes of that event, repeating like a loop. Key signs. Supporting this theory, the cold air and dense atmosphere are classic signs of a location steeped in negative energy. The ash-covered floor and chair facing the wall suggest someone may have once been forced to sit there, possibly a punishment, or worse. The whispered invitation to sit in the chair could be the result of whatever trauma happened there, endlessly playing back. Reddit comment. Likely to appear? Sounds like a tragic event left an imprint, like a recording stuck on repeat. The footsteps, the whispers. It's not targeting you, it's just replaying itself. 3. Psychological breakdown theory. Paranoia, anxiety, or sleep paralysis. Some Redditors might argue that stress, isolation, or mental strain played a major role. The cold room, pacing footsteps, and shadowed figure align with common symptoms of sleep paralysis, a condition where individuals wake up frozen, often hallucinating sinister presences. The fear and tension of moving into an unsettling home may have amplified these experiences. Key signs. Supporting this theory, the whispers and shadow figure are textbook sleep paralysis hallucinations. The footsteps could have been interpreted noise from old pipes, wind, or creaking floorboards in a worn Victorian home. The forgotten room may have triggered anxiety, making the narrator hyper-aware of sounds and sensations. Reddit comment. Likely to appear. Sounds like sleep paralysis mixed with anxiety, moving into an old, creepy house. Your mind's playing tricks on you, dude. The someone was living in the walls theory, real-world horror. A deeply unsettling yet plausible theory suggests there may have been a squatter or disturbed individual living in the attic or walls. The claw marks could be evidence of someone trapped or intentionally hidden away in the past. The bare feet, pacing footsteps, and whispers may have been a person deliberately trying to frighten the narrator out of the house, possibly to claim the space for themselves. Key signs. Supporting this theory, the scratch marks could indicate a person once locked in the room, a chilling possibility if the forgotten room was used for confinement. The footsteps and whispers suggest intelligence, not just random noise or a passive haunting. The whispered message. Come back to the room. Could have been someone actively luring the narrator upstairs for a more dangerous purpose. Reddit comment. Likely to appear, bro, you need to check those walls. Old houses have crawl spaces. Someone could have been living up there for months. 5. The cursed object theory. Some Redditors might connect the chair facing the wall and the carved figures to an old curse or ritual. The room could have been used for occult practices, where the chair served as a vessel for communication or containment. The whispered invitation to sit in the chair could have been an attempt to complete the ritual, one that requires someone to take the place of a previous victim. Key signs. Supporting this theory, the stick figure drawings may have been protective sigils, warning symbols meant to contain something within the room. The scorched walls could have been a failed attempt to cleanse the object or stop the ritual's effects. The whispered invitation could be the presence seeking to reclaim power by convincing someone to accept their role in the curse. Reddit comment. Likely to appear, the chair wasn't random. Someone sat there before, and whatever's in that room wants you to sit there next. 6. The it's following you theory, the true nightmare. Perhaps the most unsettling theory suggests that whatever presence was in the forgotten room latched onto the narrator when they opened the door. The pacing footsteps they now hear, despite having left the house, could mean the entity has attached itself to them. The whisper's call to sit in the chair may be its way of demanding submission or control. Key signs. Supporting this theory, the narrators claim that they still wake up cold and hear footsteps, suggests something followed them. The whisper indicates the presence remains aware of them. In folklore, opening a sealed room or object can unknowingly invite a spirit or force to bond with you. Reddit comment. Likely to appear, you didn't leave it behind. It's with you now. Whatever was in that room, it's still waiting. Which theory makes the most sense? Reddit's top voted comment would likely combine elements of these theories. The forgotten room was a site of a tragic event or dark ritual, possibly involving a child. The chair and carving suggest someone was once forced to sit there, either as part of a twisted game or as a means of containing a dangerous entity. The scorched walls point to a failed attempt to burn or cleanse the presence. By opening the room, the narrator unintentionally released whatever was sealed inside. The footsteps, whispers, and shadowed figure are signs the entity is still seeking a victim, possibly to take the narrator's place in the chair. A top upvoted comment might say, "You opened something you shouldn't have." The claw marks mean someone tried to keep it in. Whatever it is, it's still after you. I'd cleanse your home, your belongings, and yourself. So, which theory do you think fits best? Or worse, what if it's all of them combined? There's something about those late-night Reddit deep dives that always leave you with this uneasy feeling, like you've just unlocked some kind of hidden part of the internet you weren't meant to see. And trust me, this story is one of those. This is a real Reddit post that was deleted shortly after it went up, but not before some people managed to copy and archive it. The original poster never updated again, and nobody knows what happened to them after. It starts off innocent enough, Just a regular guy venting about some strange things happening in his apartment. But the deeper you go, the more you realize something horrifying is happening. Something beyond explanation. The post was titled, "I keep waking up to find things moved in my apartment, but I live alone." And it read, "For the past month, I've been noticing little things out of place when I wake up. At first, I thought I was just being forgetful, but it's getting worse. My keys will be on the counter when I know I left them on the table. My fridge door will be slightly open, and I distinctly remember closing it. My phone was in the bathroom once, and I never take my phone into the bathroom at night. It's nothing huge, nothing dramatic, but it's enough to make me feel uneasy. I live alone in a small one-bedroom apartment on the 3rd floor, and the only entrance is my front door. The windows don't open, and I always lock the door before bed. Always. So how the hell are things moving?" The comments were flooded with people suggesting the usual. Maybe he had sleepwalking disorder, maybe he was just forgetful, maybe it was stress. But OP swore up and down that he wasn't sleepwalking, and that he was completely in his right mind. Then things got worse. He updated the post. "Something is wrong. I woke up last night at exactly 3:12 a.m., feeling like I was being watched. My heart was racing, but I couldn't move. Sleep paralysis, maybe? But then I heard something, the sound of someone breathing right next to me. Slow, steady breaths. I forced myself to move, reaching for my phone, and the second I turned the screen on, the breathing stopped. I turned on my bedside lamp. Nothing there. But my bedroom door, it was open. And I know I closed it before bed." OP set up his phone to record himself sleeping. He wanted proof, some kind of answer. The next night, he let the camera run, placed on his nightstand facing the bed. He woke up, feeling watched again. The bedroom door was open. His closet door was slightly ajar. He checked the footage, and that's when he really started to panic. The video showed him sleeping peacefully for the first few hours, but around 3:10 a.m. something changed. The covers on his bed shifted, like someone was pulling them ever so slightly. Then, the closet door creaked open just an inch, slow and deliberate. But the worst part? A shadowy figure appeared at the edge of the frame, just barely visible in the darkness. It stood there for nearly 20 minutes, completely motionless, watching him sleep. Then, at 3:30, it slowly backed into the closet and the door shut on its own. OP didn't sleep the next night. He locked his bedroom door, barricaded it with a chair, and sat awake with the lights on. He didn't hear anything, didn't see anything, but when he got up to check the front door in the morning, the chain lock was unlatched. And that's when he really started to lose it. He called the landlord, demanding to know if anyone else had a key. The landlord insisted no one did. OP was about to call the police, but what would he even say? "Hi, I think a shadow is stalking me in my sleep." Instead, he bought a cheap security camera and set it up facing his bedroom door. That night, at exactly 3:12 a.m., the motion detector picked up something. The door opened on its own, and then, for a split second, a hand appeared in the doorway. Not a normal hand. The fingers were too long, the skin too pale. It reached up, grasped the door frame, and then suddenly, the feed cut out. OP woke up to find the camera smashed at the floor. He packed a bag and left. He drove to his parents' house 2 towns over, refusing to step foot in that apartment again. The landlord called a few days later, seeing they found his apartment completely trashed, furniture overturned, deep scratches on the walls. The closet door had been ripped off its hinges. OP never went back. The post was deleted a few days later. No updates, no follow-up. Just gone. Some people think it was a hoax, but the ones who saved the footage before the post disappeared swear it was real. The way the shadow moved, the way the closet door opened on its own, and that hand that wasn't human. Some people said the apartment could have been built on something, maybe a site of some horrible event. Others said it was a demon, an entity, something ancient and hungry. But the worst theory? Someone suggested that whatever it was, it had been there long before OP moved in. It had always been in the closet, watching, waiting, and it didn't like being seen, so it made sure OP would never return. But here's where things get even weirder. A few months later, another Redditor claimed to have moved into the same apartment. They posted something chilling. I think my closet is haunted. And that's when people really started to freak out. The same thing started happening. Doors moving, whispers in the night, the closet door never staying shut. They even mentioned waking up at exactly 3:12 a.m., feeling watched. The account was deleted shortly after. To this day, no one knows what's really going on in that apartment. The landlord refuses to talk about it. But if you ever find yourself moving into a new place and the closet door just won't stay shut, maybe, just maybe, you should leave it alone. Or better yet, don't move in at all. I never thought I would be the type of person to have a stalker. That kind of thing happens to celebrities, influencers, people in the public eye, not regular people like me. But I know now that it can happen to anyone, and once it starts, there's almost nothing you can do to stop it. It started small, a misplaced feeling at first. I would walk home from work at night and get the sense that someone was following me. But when I turned around, the sidewalk was always empty. Sometimes I would hear footsteps that stopped the second I did. Sometimes I would see a shadow in my peripheral vision, only to find nothing there when I looked. It was unsettling, but I convinced myself I was just being paranoid. Then things escalated. One night, I got home and found my front door unlocked. I never forget to lock my door. My stomach dropped as I stepped inside, bracing myself for something, anything. But the house was exactly how I left it. No drawers open, no furniture out of place. Nothing was stolen. The only thing that was different was the air. It felt off, like someone had been there just seconds before I walked in. I checked every room, every closet, but I was alone. I told myself I must have forgotten to lock it, but I didn't sleep that night, and I should have trusted my instincts. The notes started appearing soon after. The first one was on my car windshield. You looked beautiful today. No name, no signature, just those words, written in neat, careful handwriting. It was unnerving, but I tried to brush it off as a creepy prank. But then the second note came. This time, it was inside my apartment. I found it on my bedside table when I got home from work. I love watching you sleep. I felt sick. Someone had been in my home. Someone had been in my bedroom. I checked every lock, every window, but they were all intact. I had no idea how they got in, and that was the worst part. I didn't know where the entry point was. I called the police, but they were frustratingly unhelpful. Could be a prank, one officer suggested. Maybe a friend messing with you. It was the same patronizing tone they always use when they don't believe you. They took a report, but told me there wasn't much they could do. I was on my own. That night, I barricaded my bedroom door and slept with a knife under my pillow.
But no matter what I did, it got worse. The next note was taped to my bathroom mirror. I hate when you close the blinds. I started to unravel. Every little sound made my heart race. Every shadow felt like a person watching me. I stopped going out at night. I changed my locks. I set up cameras. But whoever they were smarter than me. None of the cameras ever caught anything.